They laughed at her. The black maid, quietly mopping floors while they whispered behind her back. They thought she was invisible, just someone to clean up after them. But what they didn't know? She wasn't just a maid. She was about to own the entire company. And the day she walked into the CEO's office, their faces turned pale. Why? Because she wasn't there to clean anymore. She was there to fire someone, and you won't believe who it was. Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from. Stay till the end. You won't see this twist coming. In a sleek corporate office filled with glass walls and busy professionals, no one noticed Clara, a 28-year-old black woman in a cleaning uniform. She moved quietly, mopping floors while employees passed by without a second glance. To them, she was just the cleaning lady, invisible in a world obsessed with status. The office buzzed with young, arrogant employees who mocked her when they thought she wasn't listening, laughing, whispering, treating her like she didn't matter. But Clara heard everything. She observed, learned, and remembered. At the top of it all was Jonathan Harrison, the chief executive officer, powerful, dismissive, and full of himself. He never acknowledged Clara, not even a simple hello. But what they didn't know, Clara wasn't just a maid. She knew every secret tucked behind their glass walls, every mistake hidden under polished floors. They thought they were running the company, but Clara was the one holding all the power. And when she finally walked into the chief executive officer's office, she wasn't there to clean. She was there to take over. Clara continued her routine, quietly moving through the office, cleaning desks, emptying trash cans, and wiping down glass walls. She heard everything, the whispers, the laughter, the jokes made at her expense. The employees thought she was invisible. They laughed behind her back, calling her names like just the maid, never realizing she heard every word. But Clara didn't react. She didn't need to, because she knew something they didn't. She had been working at the company for over a year, observing more than just dirt on the floors. She noticed the shady deals, the office politics, and the way employees sucked up to the chief executive officer, Jonathan Harrison, while looking down on people like her. Clara had seen enough to understand the company's weaknesses and the people responsible for them. One day, Clara overheard a heated conversation in the conference room. The door was slightly open, and inside, Jonathan Harrison was arguing with the board members. The company was struggling. Financial reports were bad, projects were failing, and employees were unhappy. But Jonathan Harrison refused to listen, blaming everyone except himself. After the meeting, the same employees who laughed at Clara walked past her, still mocking her like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Later that evening, when the office was empty, Clara pulled out her phone and made a call. "It's time," she said quietly. The next morning, an email was sent to every employee. It announced an emergency company-wide meeting. Whispers filled the hallways. People were nervous. Rumors spread fast. When the employees gathered in the large conference room, Jonathan Harrison stood at the front, trying to look confident. But deep down, he knew something was wrong. As he started speaking, the doors opened. Everyone turned to see who it was. It was Clara. But she wasn't wearing her cleaning uniform. She was dressed in a sharp business suit, holding a folder in her hand. She walked straight to the front, standing beside Jonathan Harrison, who looked confused and annoyed. Before he could say anything, Clara spoke. "I'm Clara. Some of you know me as the cleaning lady, but today I'm here for a different reason." The room fell silent. Clara opened the folder and continued. "As of today, I am the new owner of this company." Jonathan Harrison's face went pale. The employees who laughed at her, their jaws dropped. Clara explained how she had inherited controlling shares in the company from a family connection, something no one knew because she had chosen to keep it a secret. She wanted to see the company from the ground up, to understand how people were treated when they thought no one was watching. Then came the final blow. Clara turned to Jonathan Harrison and said, "You're fired." The room stayed silent for a moment, and then whispers exploded everywhere. The same people who laughed at Clara were now speechless. And just like that, Clara went from being just the maid to the woman who ran the company. The room was dead silent after Clara's words. "You're fired." Jonathan Harrison's face turned from pale to bright red. He tried to laugh it off, forcing a smirk. "This is a joke, right? You, the cleaning lady? You can't fire me." But Clara didn't flinch. She stood tall, her voice calm and steady. "I'm not the cleaning lady anymore. I'm your boss, and yes, you're fired." The employees who had once laughed at Clara now sat frozen, eyes wide, mouths slightly open. No one dared to speak. Jonathan Harrison's confidence crumbled. "You can't do this. I built this company. I've been running it for years." Clara raised an eyebrow. "Exactly. You've been running it. Into the ground. The board knows it, the employees feel it, and the numbers prove it." She pulled out documents from her folder, laying them on the table. Financial reports, emails, and evidence of poor leadership decisions. Everything Clara had quietly gathered while working in the background. Jonathan Harrison glanced at the papers, his face growing even paler. He tried to grab them, but Clara's firm voice stopped him. "Don't bother. Everyone here is going to hear the truth." She turned to the employees. "While you were busy laughing at me, I was learning. I saw how this company treated people based on job titles, not talent. I watched how kindness was ignored and arrogance was rewarded." The room remained silent, tension thick in the air. Jonathan Harrison, desperate, tried to regain control. "This company doesn't need someone like you. You don't belong here." Clara took a step closer, her eyes sharp. "You're right. I don't belong in a place where people are judged by their uniforms. That's why I'm here to change it." She turned back to the employees. "This company belongs to every hard-working person who's been overlooked, disrespected, and underestimated. Starting today, that changes." The employees looked around, whispering nervously. Some of the same people who had mocked Clara now realized she had been the smartest person in the room all along. Jonathan Harrison tried one last time. "I'll sue you. I'll fight this." Clara didn't even blink. "Good luck with that. I own the company, remember?" With that final blow, Jonathan Harrison had nothing left to say. Security escorted him out as he shouted empty threats, his voice fading down the hall. Clara turned back to the employees. "For those who worked hard and treated others with respect, you have nothing to worry about. But for those who thought power meant looking down on others, your time's up." The meeting ended, but the impact of Clara's words stayed. The woman they ignored, laughed at, and dismissed had just changed everything, and she wasn't done yet. This was only the beginning. As the door closed behind Jonathan Harrison, the room stayed quiet. No one could believe what just happened. The same people who once laughed at Clara now sat frozen, unsure of what to say. Clara looked around, her eyes calm but filled with purpose. "I know some of you are wondering how this happened," she began. "So, let me tell you the truth." She took a deep breath and continued. "This company wasn't built by Jonathan Harrison. It was built by my grandfather. He founded it years ago with a simple idea: create opportunities for people based on talent, not titles. But somewhere along the way, that vision was lost." Gasps echoed through the room. The employees exchanged shocked glances. They had no idea Clara was connected to the very foundation of the company. Clara nodded slowly, seeing their surprise. After my grandfather passed, my family stepped back from the business, but before he died, he left me something. A controlling share in this company. I could have walked in as the owner any time, but I didn't, because I wanted to see for myself what this company had become. She paused, letting her words sink in. That's why I started here as a cleaner. I wanted to see how people were treated when they had no title, no power, nothing to offer except hard work. The employees looked down, embarrassed. The same people who ignored her, mocked her, and treated her like she didn't matter, now realized she had been the one watching them all along. Clara's voice grew stronger. I saw everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I saw who treated people with respect and who only showed kindness when it benefited them. She walked to the front of the room, standing where Jonathan Harrison once stood. I didn't just fire a CEO today. I fired an attitude, a mindset that said power is more important than people. That ends now. The room stayed silent, not out of fear, but respect. Clara smiled slightly. For those of you who worked hard, treated others well, and stayed true to your values, thank you. You're the reason this company can be saved. But for those who thought success meant stepping on others, she paused, her eyes sharp. Consider this your wake-up call. Whispers filled the room again, but this time they weren't about Clara. They were about the lessons learned, the realization that respect isn't about titles. Clara picked up her folder, gave one last look around, and said, I started here cleaning floors. Now, I'm here to clean up something much bigger. And with that, she walked out of the room, leaving behind a company forever changed. Because sometimes, the people you overlook are the ones who change everything. After Clara left the room, the office was filled with an unfamiliar silence. The same people who once laughed at her sat quietly, unable to meet each other's eyes. The weight of what had just happened hung heavy in the air. No one expected it. No one saw it coming. But Clara's words left an impact that couldn't be ignored. Clara didn't return to her old routine because she wasn't there to clean floors anymore. She was there to clean up something bigger, an entire company culture built on arrogance, disrespect, and ignorance. But she didn't take the biggest office or demand special treatment. She wasn't interested in titles. She was interested in change. Her first decision as the new owner shocked everyone. She didn't fire everyone who disrespected her. Number Clara believed in second chances. She called a meeting and stood in front of the very people who had ignored, mocked, and belittled her. This time, though, they listened. I know many of you are uncomfortable right now, Clara began, her voice calm but firm. And that's good, because growth doesn't happen when we're comfortable. It happens when we're forced to face the truth. She paused, scanning the room. Some of you thought I was invisible. Some of you thought it was okay to laugh at me because you believed I didn't matter. But the truth is, I saw you. I heard every word. And I remembered everything. The room was painfully silent. No one dared to speak. But here's the thing, Clara continued. I didn't come here today to get revenge. I came here to rebuild. Her words hung in the air like a challenge. Clara's first change? Respect. She introduced a new policy where every employee, regardless of their role, had a voice. She created open spaces for communication, where even the quietest person in the room could be heard. She encouraged employees to share their ideas without fear of judgment. It wasn't about titles anymore. It was about contributions. For those who had treated her the worst, Clara gave them a choice: change or leave. Some couldn't handle the shift in power and resigned, unable to face the very person they once looked down on. But others stayed, eager to prove they could be better. One of them was Sarah, an employee who had been one of Clara's harshest critics. She approached Clara one day, nervously fidgeting with her notebook. "I owe you an apology," she whispered. "I judged you without knowing anything about you. I was wrong." Clara looked at her, not with anger, but understanding. "Thank you for saying that," she replied softly. "Now show me you've changed. Actions speak louder than words." And Sarah did. She worked harder, treated her colleagues with respect, and eventually became one of Clara's most trusted team members. But it wasn't just about fixing people. Clara had a vision for the company itself. She restructured departments to ensure fairness, promoted people based on merit, not favoritism, and implemented programs to support employee growth and well-being. Under her leadership, the company didn't just recover, it thrived. Profits grew, but something more important happened. People felt seen, heard, and valued. The office transformed from a place of fear and judgment to one of collaboration and respect. Employees who once felt invisible found their voices. Ideas flourished, creativity soared, and for the first time in a long time, people were proud to work there. Months later, Clara stood in front of her employees during a company-wide meeting. But this time, she wasn't standing as the cleaning lady they used to ignore. She was standing as the leader who had changed their lives. She looked around the room, her eyes filled with both pride and humility. "When I first came here, no one saw me. And honestly, that was my plan. I wanted to see who you were when you thought no one important was watching." The room was silent, every word sinking deep. "I hope you've learned something from this journey. I hope you've realized that success isn't measured by titles or power. It's measured by how we treat people when we think no one's watching." She smiled, her voice soft but powerful. Because respect isn't something you give based on job titles. It's something you give because it's the right thing to do. The room erupted in applause, not because they had to, but because they meant it. Clara didn't just lead the company, she inspired it. She showed everyone that leadership isn't about control. It's about compassion, integrity, and the courage to do what's right. As the applause faded, Clara's final words echoed in the hearts of everyone there. The people you overlook today might be the ones you look up to tomorrow. So treat everyone with the respect they deserve, always. And with that, Clara walked off the stage, not as someone who needed validation, but as someone who had already made her mark. Because Clara's story wasn't just about rising to the top. It was about how she lifted an entire company with her. And that's the kind of leadership that leaves a legacy. Clara's story is a powerful reminder that you should never judge someone by their job title. She walked into that company as just a cleaning lady, but she left as the person who changed everything. The people who laughed at her, ignored her, and thought she was invisible, they had to face the truth that the person they underestimated was the one they should have respected all along. This wasn't just about Clara becoming the boss. It was about the lesson she taught everyone. Kindness, respect, and integrity matter more than status or power. So here's a question for you. Have you ever been underestimated or treated unfairly? Or maybe you've seen someone overlooked because of their job or background. Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories. And if this story inspired you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. Because in the end, it's not about where you start. It's about who you are when no one's watching. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.